Hello, fellow thinkers. Uh, we welcome you to the fourth episode of the Independent Minds podcast. Last week we talked about Greek philosophy and we went over all of these wonderful philosophers and how they affected our world today. And this week we decided to discuss one of the branches of Greek and Roman philosophy, and that is Stoicism. We will go over what it was and what it is today and how it impacts our world and who are some philosophers who cover Stoicism. So we're going to start as soon as possible. But I'd like to welcome Brandon. How are you, Brandon?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fine. And so I'm very excited about this topic. Stoicism is really important to me. And how about you? What do you think?
Yeah, so before preparing for today, I didn't know much about Stoicism,
Mhm.
but since I've been doing some reading, it's interested me a lot and yeah, so I'm excited.
So, since you've read so much about it over the past few weeks, would you like to cover would you like to cover what you went over, and would you like to say firstly the definition of stoicism?
So, Nur, Stoicism can be explained as kind of it can be explained in the world of personal ethics, which draws upon logic, epistemology, and kind of naturalism. And so basically, when you think of what a stoic person is in the popular mythos, a stoic person is someone who kind of stands up and perhaps might be brave, but for that's kind of a little different from what it was originally thought of. Like a stoic is basically a person who doesn't allow themselves to be controlled by their desires. A person
Sure.
who doesn't allow themselves to be scared or kind of pressured by their lusts for something, you know? And this
Mhm.
is how the Stoics think true happiness is reached.
Yeah, but it also comes from, controlling yourself, and not only controlling yourself, but also teaching yourself to, be better. And this way of improving yourself is done through embracing, you know, the pains and the hardships you go through in life and then learning from them. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I definitely would.
And so this stoicism also teaches us to learn from our mistakes. Not only that, but it also gives us a meaning in life to always improve yourself, and that is priceless, I think.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is it teaches you to learn from your mistakes, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And when you said that, what immediately came to mind was the quote, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, kind of.
Yeah.
And I think that was I mean, a lot of people have said that, but I think that was by Nietzsche. Yeah, that was by Nietzsche. And it's interesting how a 19th century German guy could have similar views to 3rd century BC Greek people, you know?
Yeah, I mean, but Stoicism is something that transcends time. It's not only it's not only a concept relative the to the ancient world. For example, I mean, many philosophies of the ancient world, such as, you know, um, simply uh, being powerful enough or training yourself enough to um, be ready when someone attacks you, is not so much relevant today. Wouldn't you agree? Because, well, we don't live in such a violent world anymore. At least in the West, we don't.
Yeah,
And that brings up a point of why Stoicism is so important, and why is it so vital to understand it in order to become successful in leading leading your group, leading yourself, and also influencing not only yourself in a positive way, but also those around you.
definitely. Because like something to draw upon this, like there's kind of a there's kind of like a cultural like meme, I guess that would be the right term, about
Mm-hmm.
how like hard times create like strong people create good times, and then like good times create weak people, and then weak people create hard times.
Yeah, it's the cycle of, well, each, generation. Wouldn't you agree? Um,
I don't know how,
my,
sorry, what were you gonna say?
I feel like my grandparents or my great grandparents, like, they were much more advanced than me at my age. They didn't do the specific activities for sure, but they've created this time in which I could be successful, and I wouldn't have to worry about the things that they themselves worried about.
Yeah, and I think that stoicism is key to breaking that cycle, because what happens is if the people who are created in the good times, if they are able to like be stoics, then there won't be any like hard times, and society will improve.
Fully agreed, fully agreed. And what I want to emphasize on here is that while Stoicism could be seen as a very harsh discipline, because it literally tells a person to embrace pain and embrace hardships and not shy away from it. In a way that makes people uncomfortable and, move away from stoic thought, because, well, they don't want to break their bubbles, I guess. And uh what this means is that we're not really open to changing our environment and also learning from the hardships that our new environment brings to us. You see, we want to always stay in a position, and it's the nature of humans actually. We want to always stay in the place where we don't face any hardships, even if we know that in the end we are gonna suffer from it. We are more, we are more in a way motivated by the sudden and, sudden pleasure of something rather than, you know, um, like a prolonged period of time where you get pleasure every single day from what you have achieved and what you have built and what you have done. Many people in a way do not go on to break their bubbles, and this is, I guess, the reason why.
Yeah. And so Stoicism started, like I said earlier, in like the third century BC. But the first guy who I guess we would call a Stoic was Zeno of Citium in
Mm-hmm.
ancient Athens. And Stoicism was very much centered among ancient Athens, but it also kind of presented itself significantly in ancient Rome too, right?
Yeah, for sure. For example, we know people who are we know many scholars who went through who created hardships for themselves and who volunteered in the Roman army, the legionnaires, in order to seek pleasure from, well, serving your country, but not only doing that, but also in the end gaining some land from it. And this is the basic ideal. I believe the basic ideals of the Stoic life were made in ancient Rome instead of ancient Greece. The reason that I say that is because, well, in ancient Rome, they built this system where people could actually rise in ranks heavily after just, after just serving the public. And what I mentioned before was that Stoicism is not only about improving yourself, but also believing that by improving yourself, you automatically improve those around you and start to lead them. And I think this is where that idea of community is actually built in Rome. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, specifically in Rome, I know that there were many Stoic philosophers who kind of like put their own personal brand of Stoicism out there. And one of the interesting ones was Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah, philosopher king.
Yeah,
He
because
was also a king.
he's a pretty like interesting guy, don't you think?
Yeah, he is indeed very interesting, I would say. If you want me to talk about his version of Stoicism and what he added into it, is he he made he basically improved that the idea that people and stoics should focus on meditating and clearing their mind. That was one of the innovations, I guess, he brought on to the philosophy of Stoicism. Not only that, but he also talked about how serving the public is not a thing that decreases from us, is not a negative thing to us, but instead it's a positive thing. And he basically glorified those. He glorified his soldiers who did it for a cause, who did it for a reason. And while saying that, he also believed that human beings should live for a purpose, whether that be as simple as just improving yourself, and um or that could be as complex as serving a cause in which a cause in which you could get a certain role and then improve the lives of others next to you. So Stoicism is not the most I would say the most complex of philosophies. Instead, it's it's more like a self guide, is what I would describe it as. It's
Hmm.
not so much as you know philosophers just putting out these ideas, but it's more like just improving yourself in the very beginning, and that's what he worked on in the end. So, yeah.
That's really interesting, yeah. So I wonder, like, through all of, well, because Stoicism is kind of like the first self-help book, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
And many self-help books that are published today kind of share themes found in Stoicism.
Yes.
How do you think Stoicism has like influenced people?
Well, definitely it has influenced people by telling them to not, shy away from challenges. That's the number one thing. And the second thing is, you know, what I believe is if you just keep getting hit by life, if you just, if you're always beaten to the ground by the hardships that you face, but at the end of the day, you get nothing from it. In that case, you learn pretty much nothing, and you're back to square zero, square one. And what this means is that Stoicism has also taught people to learn from it and improve themselves. It's basically kind of like a really, if you look at it in a certain perspective, you would see it as selfish because you're always talking about how you could improve yourself and how you could do better. But at the same time, it's really selfless instead of selfish because you are acknowledging that you're pretty much nothing and you're looking at the grand scheme of things and saying that, oh wow, you know what I think I should do? I think I should really improve myself so that I could be of help to my community. I've just summed up Stoicism.
Yeah,
So, would you like to talk about modern Stoicism, Brandon?
sure. So Stoicism, like Stoicism could be categorized as like virtue ethics because it
Mm-hmm.
emphasized the virtues of like being able to like, control yourself and so on. But basically, like in modern times, this is like the way Stoicism has gained like a lot of attention. So basically, whenever people focus on like virtue ethics,
Mm-hmm.
they mainly view like Stoicism now because the only other like major school of virtue ethics is like Aristotelian ethics. And there aren't that many Aristotelians in 2021. But like Stoicism is kind of timeless, I think,
Yeah,
because of the
definitely.
way it like kind of prescribes us to live our life. And
Hmm.
because of that, it's still like have it still has attention today, 2000 years after it was written.
Yeah, and one person who was particularly invested in Stoicism was Napoleon, who did not directly, contribute any ideas to it, but kind of adapted some ideas, I guess. So he always talked about how the best, I mean, the most beneficial general would be a general with a cool head. And so what that means for us is that generals are taking up so many responsibilities every single day while they're on duty. And what this shows us is to appreciate our value in the world and kind of keep ourselves as relaxed as possible in order to get better.
Yeah, like Napoleon, and he kind of shows how successful it is, right? I mean, like he ended up losing in the end, but he was a very successful general.
Yeah, from rags to riches.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of an example of Stoicism in itself.
Yep. And um,
Hold
you
on,
know,
hold on, hold on, hold on.
yeah. So while Brandon is speaking, we should proceed on with the podcast. So uh not only is stoicism something that many leaders in the past and in the future have done, but it's also something that could, benefit the average person. So it's not just for the best of the best, the most elite, but it's also for the average person to improve their lives. So, you know, you don't have to have ambitions of, conquering the world in order to get into stoicism. That's basically it. So,
I think
e-
that's actually like a really inspiring thing to kind of leave us with, you know?
yeah. So, Brandon, any thoughts on how stoicism could benefit the average man or woman?
I think there's a lot of ways Stoicism could benefit the average person. Like, I think that literally, maybe even like, maybe even not just humans, but I think like the message of Stoicism could benefit like any living thing if the living thing is able to like put it into practice, right? I think that like controlling yourself and kind of like sorry, like controlling yourself and living the good life can be like a completely beneficial experience because it allows you to like kind of like gain some focus on
Mm-hmm.
what might be like an otherwise like kind of like rough or chaotic like experience, you know?
So, yeah, definitely, definitely. So, um, what do you think of stoicism yourself, Brandon?
So I think it's a great like I think it's a great way that a person could live their life by,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't accept the we can talk this will have to be a topic for another episode, but I kind of have issues with the way it gets into virtue ethics because I don't really like virtue ethics, but I think that can be for another episode.
So, fellow thinkers, we have finished our podcast for today. Please leave your comments below for anything that you liked, you didn't like, and please remember to like, subscribe, and also follow our Instagram. And thank you all for watching. And we are also planning to create a channel Discord, which should be under the next episode of our podcast. So stay tuned. And, anyways, thank you all for watching. Bye bye.
Bye.